All right, Alex, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks, James, for making the trek to Geelong.
Yeah, of course. How do you find it here compared to where you were before in Melbourne?
I think it definitely complements my way of life now, which is, slower living, slower lifestyle, slower pace. So prior to moving to Geelong, we were living in St Kilda amid the hustle and bustle, which, served us in our early 20s. But I think now that we're looking to settle down, Geelong is a much better choice for us personally. And I love it. Best decision we made for ourselves. Cool. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful place you got down here, so thanks for inviting me in.
No worries.
But I'd love to get a sense of your background and your story, because everything you're doing with Saint Belford is really amazing today. So definitely want to dive into that. But yeah, can you just tell us a bit of your background story? What were you doing before Saint Belford and all these projects today?
Yeah, sure. So prior to starting Saint Belford, I was working at a digital marketing agency in South Melbourne. So it's a boutique agency specialising in search engine optimization. So fancy. So I started as a junior account manager there and then quickly progressed into a senior role where I was managing 2 staff. And I guess that was, I hate to say it, but it was the beginning of the end for me.
Really?
I realised that management was not my forte. I was taking it home with me, managing staff that were initially friends. So it was a very difficult space to navigate. And then at home, so obviously I was working full time. And then at home, I was trying to monetize a blog that I had started. So I had started this blog initially as a hobby, an outlet for, creative expression. But then decided that I wanted to monetize it because at the agency that I was working at, I could see how lucrative the blogging industry was. And so I was like, I want a piece of that.
Yeah.
So put a lot of pressure on myself to turn that into a side income, which, was to my detriment. And on top of that, my family were running a business at the time. So I put my hand up and said, I'll do the marketing for it. So basically, I was just taking on a lot and I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to prioritize my well-being. I just didn't even consider it a priority. And I guess that led to my downfall.
Yeah. So what sort of stuff, I guess so it sounds like you're kind of like burning the candle at both ends and just going hard.
Yes.
Is that really what it was? You were just kind of just working too much and not having any boundaries, or what was the main issue?
Yeah, I think the issue was my mindset at the time, which was you've got to hustle hard. And that's a word I certainly don't associate with anymore just because I have such negative connotations to it.
Interesting.
But it was that you've got to do it all. That was the mentality that I had. You can't take breaks. Like taking breaks is a sign of weakness. You've just got to do it all. You've got to do more. Doing more means that you're accomplishing more. And I guess in that mindset, I was neglecting my well-being in the process and I burnt myself out big time.
What, can you think of anything specific, or I guess how did that manifest itself in you? So when you say like burnout, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I know it looks different. It's different for everyone. For me, it manifested in the form of gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach lining. So it's a pretty painful experience.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah. I was at work one day and I just thought, it's just a really bad stomach ache. And it just started as that. And then it just progressed. And I remember going to the doctors because this wasn't getting any better. And they said, this is gastritis. It's inflammation of the stomach lining. It's caused by stress. And there's a number of causes, but mine was due to stress. You need to take time off work. You need to stop. You need to do nothing and rest. And that, like someone saying that to someone who is all about the hustle was a huge slap in the face.
Yeah.
It was like, what? You're telling me to stop? But I think because my body was giving me that immediate feedback. So whenever I tried to go fast, my body I would be experiencing pain. So it was that immediate feedback that forced me to actually stop and rest. And I think it was a huge wake up call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they actually told you to slow down, Did you accept that and take the advice straight away, or was there a period of resistance where you kind of kept going?
I took that advice on board because I guess it was coming from an authority. It wasn't coming from like my partner or a friend. It was coming from someone who was like, there's something wrong with you at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was definitely a little bit of resistance there. I think like I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to slow down. But it was a habit, right? Going fast, like speeding up and doing things at a fast pace. It's a habit. So it was difficult it wasn't just like, I'm going to flip the switch immediately. It was a transition. It was a huge transition.
What was that transition like? Because I know for myself personally, I've been in a similar situation to you where, you know, you're going hard and you don't realize how burnt out you are at the time. But then when you take a step back, you really do realize. But it is hard to adjust to doing less because you feel less productive. You feel like you're not accomplishing much, even though you are. So I guess, yeah, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, so I guess being in that space of being forced to take time off work, being told to do nothing, it was space for reflection, which I wasn't used to because I was usually filling in those gaps. And it was in that period of reflection that I was able to kind of see myself, like observe myself and my actions and realize that, oh yeah, like the way that I was living my life was completely unsustainable. Like I could finally sit back and connect the dots and be like, these actions that I was taking, saying yes to everything, just not putting myself first was the result of burning out. And so the first thing I did was start meditating. It sounds so cliche, but
it's important.
yeah, and it was...
What was your practice?
Just like, what was I using at the time? Because I've been through a few apps.
Headspace or Calm?
I think it was One Giant Mind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it was difficult. It was really difficult. I actually experienced anxiety like the first few times I did it because, again, like I wasn't used to sitting still.
Yeah.
So I found it really challenging, but I kept at it. Like I think I finally could sort of, because I could see clearly that this path, this lifestyle was unsustainable, and I knew that I had to make changes. So I was kind of ready to make those changes. And, you know, pain is a pretty powerful
it's a strong
teacher.
motivator,
Yeah. So I was keen to, like use that as a practice of teaching myself to slow down. So yeah, it just started off with just a few minutes of meditation. I don't think I did it daily initially. I do now, but it was just reminding myself to slow down constantly.
And then I guess during that period where you did take a bit of downtime and look after yourself a bit more, did you really notice a difference in yourself in terms of like your mental health or your well-being? Was that actually really noticeable at that period, or not really?
I don't think it was. I think while I knew that I needed to make those changes, I still had a long way to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, like I said, it's not one of those things that you can just easily transition to and from. Obviously the pain helps, because it motivates you and it teaches you, but there were a few, you know, back and forth periods there. Yeah.
Got it. And so I guess, was that, upon reflection of that period, is that kind of where the idea for Saint Belford came from, when you actually realized how burnt out you were and how you weren't prioritizing yourself and your well-being? Is that where the first sort of seeds started to get planted for that business, or was there something else?
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely contributed to the idea, but it was actually something a bit more, I guess, specific. So it was the beginning of the year and I was searching for a diary myself, and having experienced what I had just experienced, I wanted something that was less focused on productivity and something that was more focused on looking after myself and just, you know, being that physical reminder of, hey, just slow down. Hey, you need to prioritize your well-being. But I couldn't find anything like that. And Tom remembers this better than I do, but we were out shopping and I said, I can't find anything that I like. Like, I should just create it myself. And it was just a passing comment. Like, it was an isolated comment. It didn't ignite a discussion between us two. It was just that was a comment and that was it. And then that happened, and then I sort of slowly transitioned back to work. All the while feeling, you know, very unfulfilled, lots of questions unanswered. I'm like trying to change my life. And also, I don't really like what I'm doing anymore. I'm feeling like I need to change my career as well, but I'm not sure what direction to take that in. So I was just feeling very confused at the time. And then Tom messages me out of the blue and he said, "Oh, I've got a business proposal for you. Let's chat tonight." Being the impatient person that I am at times, I couldn't wait. So I ran downstairs and just like called him immediately and said, you know, what are you on about? Like, what's this about? Because it's not like he had done this on previous occasions. And I'm like, oh, it's just another one of his ideas. And he said, "Remember that time you said you should just create your own planner?" And I actually couldn't remember, didn't recall that comment. I was like, no, but okay. It's like, we should do that. And when he said that, I like, honestly, it was one of those vivid moments. You know, some memories are just so unclear, but this one is just clear as day to me. I felt this surge of excitement, like for the first time, like being in that unfulfilled, burnt out space, and all of a sudden having this new like energy and excitement just run through you. Like it was a full body yes. Like I didn't know what it was going to look like exactly. I didn't know, again, lots of unanswered questions, but I knew that this was something that I wanted to do.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think? So when it comes to doing something like that, so obviously that was the initial seed and you sort of felt that experience of like really wanting to do it. Do you think that that's something that people should look for, like when they are thinking of starting a business or starting some project? Like, does there kind of need to be that really like moment of, oh yeah, like I can clearly see this? Do you think that that's the case, or that was just how it was for you?
I truly believe that if you're starting a business, you need to have a strong why behind it.
Yeah.
And for me, I had a strong story to back the business. Like I had my why. So I think that's so powerful because business gets hard.
Yeah.
And there's hurdles that are going to, you know, inevitably emerge. So if you want to stick it out for the long term, you need to make sure that you have a strong enough why to get you through those hurdles.
Yeah, it's because it's almost like what you were doing before at the agency. It's like, yes, that's hard work, and then you're not feeling fulfilled by it. So There's like no motivation to keep going, and then you just get burnt out. Whereas I'm sure you've probably had some late nights and long sessions with Saint Belford, but it's almost like a different thing.
Definitely. It's funny you say that. Like running your own business, I mean, of course, I'm not going to lie. We set boundaries, but they're rules at the end of the day. They're default rules, but we need to bend them at times. There's only been, I'm proud to say there's only been like a couple of times, maybe a few times that we've worked on a weekend because I feel very strongly about boundaries. I think it's...
Is that a recent thing? Because it sounds like, I guess, before maybe you didn't have boundaries with work and that's maybe why you got burnt out, or...
Yes.
So this is like a new...
Yeah, I mean, I need to be living what I'm preaching,
right?
Yeah. I'm saying prioritise your wellbeing. Like I'm saying it to everyone as much as I am to myself. So I believe that it's so important to have rules in place and rules that you proactively set for yourself. And even if you follow them, you know, only 90% of the time, at least you're following them 90% of the time as opposed to 0% of the time. So yeah, boundaries around like checking emails and what your work hours look like and what your rest days are. And yeah.
That's a hard thing as well when you're doing your own business because it can become very blurry.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're working from home. And I know you used to live in a small apartment in St Kilda in Melbourne, and you know you've kind of got the kitchen table, which is also the workstation, which is also the packing table. So it becomes a very important thing to be able to create those boundaries.
Absolutely. And you know, have other people hold you accountable to that. I think it's so important. You know, have your friends check in with you and be like, hey, are you working today? Or if you're saying yes to that a lot, then well, you know, you need to readjust or yeah.
So, okay, so when you first started Saint Belford, that was 2017, was it?
Yes, October 2017 was when we launched.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like? Were you still working at your agency for a while when you first launched it, or did you kind of quit that and just go all in?
Yeah, so we came up with the idea in February, I want to say. Yeah, February. And I knew at that point, like, I think it was maybe a month in when we started brainstorming ideas, and, you know, the excitement levels didn't go away. Like, I was like, this is definitely what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I couldn't do both. And it wasn't a matter of couldn't, it was I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I knew that I would just be repeating another case of burnout, like just repeating my old patterns. So I had to make a choice, and it was a very easy one for me. I wasn't fulfilled, so I was basically just doing it for the money. Towards the end of it, I was like, okay, now that I've decided that I'm going to quit and go all in with Saint Belford, I'm going to do it practically. You know, you need money to survive. Yep. So I decided to just save as much as I could. So I think I decided maybe in March that I was like, okay, I'm going all in with this business, and work out financially, like how much would I need to sort of get by for, you know, 6 months or so to see if this business can actually take off. And I reckon I saved maybe 15,000 and lived very, very frugally. Obviously, rent was my biggest expense. Yeah. So instead of sacrificing, you know, my well-being and trying to do both, I decided, okay, I'm going to not go to brunch every weekend. Yeah. I'm not going to buy a new dress just for this occasion, you know. I sort of cut back on those luxury expenses, and I didn't feel like I was depriving myself because I was so excited about this business. Yeah.
That's cool. And I think it's a good point, because life's always about trade-offs in a way, and, you know, it's about consciously deciding which area you want to potentially sacrifice into to get what you actually want, which it sounds like you had a lot of awareness around, which is good.
Thank you.
And so, how'd that go? So 2017, you launched in October. How'd that whole process go for you? Was it smooth sailing, or any challenges there?
I think there weren't as many challenges because we weren't aware of the challenges that we could be facing until the end, until the aftermath, I guess. And it's only upon reflection that you learn, you know, what you did wrong. Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges was, I guess, when you're manufacturing a product, now we know that whenever you manufacture a new product, you need to know what could go wrong with it. We didn't know what could go wrong with manufacturing a book, you know, manufacturing a diary. So we couldn't put measures in place to manage that. Whereas now we can say to our manufacturer, this is what we will not accept. This is what we will accept.
Is there something specific that you can?
Yeah. So like we had issues. So with our first supplier, we had like a very large defect rate, loads of scratches. They were cosmetic, but obviously as it's a $59.95 planner, like you expect a premium quality product, right? Yeah. So that was one of the issues, and because we couldn't foresee that wasn't a discussion that was ever had with our first supplier. So we copped a lot of defective goods.
Is that something, just I guess to get practical and nitty gritty here, is that something that, so now would you say to someone, we won't accept a defect rate of above X, or is that kind of how you?
Exactly, yes. So we have like I guess you could say a contract in place. It's not as, contract sounds very legal, but there's an agreement in place, and you agree on a defect rate. And because obviously it's impossible to produce 100%, and we understand that. And we outline what we consider a defective product, because that's different for every brand. If you're selling a planner that's, $10, your expectations are going to be a lot less, because your customers' expectations are going to be a lot less. So it's about managing that. And having an agreement in place, talking about those things beforehand.
Yeah, it's a good practical tip. And yeah, so first year when you sold the planner with the diaries, how did that go for you? How did you sort of market them, and did you end up selling all the planners that you got made? Or
Yeah, so we sold about 1,000 in our first year, but
it's
we
amazing.
how many did we manufacture? I think we manufactured 2,000. So, but for our first year, it was great. I mean,
Yeah.
we were over the moon, to
Yeah,
say the least.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. I forgot your question.
And so I guess what from there, I guess, did you take any
Marketing.
marketing? How did you market it, and what did you learn from that first year of business?
Yeah. So from a marketing point of view, having a marketing background was super beneficial.
Yeah.
I just used the skills that I had,
Yeah.
which was in search engine optimization. So for those who don't know, it's about improving your visibility in the search results, so that when you search, at the time it was 2018 diary, our brand would appear on page 1 of Google.
Amazing.
And we managed to do that thanks to the skills that I had learned from the agency. But
Could you give a bit of detail maybe on, I guess, I know there's a lot to that, but how do you sort of rank something like common like that 2018 diary?
Yeah, I guess the short answer is links. So other blogs, other websites that are deemed to have a high authority, and there's metrics to determine that. If you have a number of links from sites like that linking to your website, then that kind of, it's like every link is kind of like a vote of confidence. And so Google sees that. And it's not to say the more links you have, the higher you'll rank, because you can have poor quality links.
Yep.
So it's about, I guess.
You want other sources that are high authority to link to you,
Yeah.
which increases your authority in Google.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, increases your credibility. So you want credible blogs to link to you.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how did you actually go about doing that? Did you like send copies to other blogs to test or write up, or like how did that work?
We sent a fair few out to bloggers who would always put together like a top 10 diaries list or top 20 diaries list for the year.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to get on that list, but also that was beneficial in two ways. People actually looked at that blog, people who care about finding the perfect planner for themselves would look at that blog, but also we wanted the link from a search engine point of view. And so it was, just sending free copies out. What else did we do? I used my agency. So this is another tip. Leverage your connections. I was lucky to leave on really good terms. Like I became really good friends with, and I still am with the guys at the agency, and they were more than happy to help out. So leverage those connections.
That's a good point, because I think a lot of people, whether they're launching a business or doing something new, they're always thinking about like, how do we get the cold traffic and convert that, when in reality there's it's easy low-hanging fruit to sort of tap into your existing network and go from there. Sounds like you found that.
Yes, absolutely. So that was another thing, like beyond the agency, we, marketed it to our friends, not specifically, but your friends and family do want to help you out when you're starting you're starting a business. And so we got a lot of love from our friends and family. Our friends would share it on their page, and then that exposes your brand to their friends, and it kind of just grows from there quite organically. But
Amazing.
in our first year, it was definitely our network it was a small portion was thanks to our network who supported us, and then next would be search engine optimization. Just ranking highly for such a new brand was huge benefit.
It's amazing. And one thing you've done really well, which I'm curious about, is that it seems like you engage your customers a lot, and it's almost like you involve them with the iterations and design of the diaries. Because I've obviously known Thomas and known of your brand for a while now, and so I've been following you, and you really do try and involve your customers, and I can see they come back year after year. So has that been deliberate, like in terms of the way you've tried to involve your customers and kind of build that brand loyalty, or is it sort of just happened? naturally?
I think it's happened naturally, and because we've received such positive feedback, you just keep doing it. It kind of reinforces that habit.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last thing that I want is for someone to purchase a planner and then not use it. So I feel responsible to make sure that they are equipped with as many resources that we can produce to ensure that they get the most out of the planner. So we do that through our stories, through our Instagram stories. I make sure that I show up pretty much every day. Not like, there's a few lazy days here and there. But
Got to look after the shoulder.
yeah. So Instagram stories. We also have a Facebook group for our curation users. So that is space for them to, interact with each other, share their goals, share their progress, ask questions. And what else do we do?
You've got an amazingly comprehensive section on your website of how to use the diary.
Yes.
Complete with videos and tutorials, which I was very impressed by.
So we've just, in the first year, we just had a written guide and it was very basic. And then we just grew upon that. We realized that, wow, our customers actually need, because it's not a basic planner. There's a lot to it. So I don't want our customers to feel overwhelmed. So if I can, produce video tutorials on how to use each feature and that means that they are going to use that feature, then that makes me feel better. So I feel like it's a valid use of my time.
Yeah, that's right.
And again, the feedback has been phenomenal. Like that is definitely one of our most visited pages, the how-to guide. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe you could, speaking of that, just explain. So there's a lot of different sections in the diary, but just to give people listening an idea of how this is different to a sort of average diary, like are there one or two sections in that that you really like for yourself, and maybe you could just explain?
Yeah, sure. So I guess you could describe it as an all-in-one planner, and that's how our customers like to describe it as well. Instead of having, multiple notebooks for different areas of your life, you can sort of manage all areas in the one. So it kind of combines your long-term goals with your day-to-day agenda, all the while making sure that you're prioritizing your well-being, which is obviously the main message of our brand, which is, put yourself first. And I guess, having said that, like one of the features that I'm most proud of is one of the simplest features in curation, which on the weekly spread is the daily self-care planner. So it's just a line with an icon which indicates it's a daily self-care planner, and it's space for you to schedule time out for yourself. It's space for you to schedule an activity that is going to fill up your cup. And it's, if anything, it's just that reminder that you should always be putting yourself first above your to-do list. Yeah.
That's cool. Are there any other sections that for yourself have been really beneficial?
Yeah, so one of the most unique features in curation is the pre-week planner. So that's a double-page spread that appears before each weekly spread. And I use this section religiously because it helps me map out my week instead of going into it feeling a little flustered or feeling like I need to get everything done on Monday. It kind of helps me slowly prioritize. So what I'll generally do is, so there's a drawing board, which is basically blank space that you can use for anything that you want, kind of like a loose bit of paper that you just have every week.
Yep.
And I generally like to, do a bit of a brain dump. So I'll write out all the things that I kind of want to do, not necessarily do that week, but all the things that are on my mind that I kind of need to do in that week or the coming week. And then I'll look at that list and I'll be like, okay, when am I going to do that? And when am I going to do that? And then I'll kind of slowly prioritize from there, rather than writing it straight into, say the Monday section and feeling a little overwhelmed because I know that's not going to happen. Yeah. Again.
Gives you that high level view of the week and then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Gives you a good bird's eye view of the week.
Love it. So how has the planner or the diary, how has it evolved? Because 2018 was the first one. We've said 2019, now 2020. Has it changed much in terms of the layout over these iterations, or has it stayed the same?
So from 2018 to 2019, we changed a lot. I'm actually I haven't actually looked at the 2018 edition in a while, but I remember the last time I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we released that.
That's always the way about your first product.
Exactly. But so yeah, 2018 to 2019, we made a lot of changes to just the way that the weekly spread was laid out. So kind of creating more space, making better use of the space.
Was that from customers' feedback, or was that from sort of your own experience of using it, or a bit of both?
Bit of both, mainly customer feedback. So we send out a survey every year. And that is a good opportunity for us to connect back with our customers and get some honest feedback. It's completely anonymous, so people can say whatever they want, and they sure as hell do.
I believe it.
But it's good. It's really good because it helps us think differently. And yeah, a lot of the changes that we've implemented have come from customer suggestions. Like in this, so 2018 to 2019, we did the most amount of changes. 2019 to 2020, there were only a few tweaks. We did add another feature, and that was a gratitude reflection feature. So that's in the pre-week planner, and that's just, space for you to sort of practice a little gratitude at the end of the week / start of the week, so that you can, start the week on a high. And that was a feature that our customers had been wanting for a while. And I just felt, I don't think we have space for it. But then you just move things around and you do.
Yeah.
So definitely, when you're asking for feedback, you do need to have an open mind. And I think my mind is just expanding year after year, as in being more open-minded to other people's suggestions rather than being like, no, I wouldn't use that, so I don't want to include that.
Was that a challenge? Did you feel that? Because it's almost like this diary, people watching can see it's a beautiful diary, and it's kind of, you put your heart and soul into it. And then if someone gives you feedback at the end of the year and they're like, oh, you should have changed this or done this, how was that experience? Like, do you take offense to it, or?
Definitely. I mean, you can't help it. Me more so than Tom.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. Like I said, I'm definitely getting better when it comes to receiving feedback and kind of looking at it logically rather than taking it personally. So.
But it is still, it feels like sometimes people are insulting your baby.
Yeah, a little bit sometimes. But then it's with those honest comments that you can be like, oh, okay, there's a gap there that maybe we can fill. Maybe we can't, but maybe we can. I think, what was one thing, I'm just thinking back to the survey that we've just sent out. People feel, so a lot of the feedback, so one of the questions was, what do you use your drawing board for? I wanted to get an idea of how people were using the pre-week planner. And there are people who love it, absolutely love it. And then there's a few that don't know how to use it. They feel intimidated by this blank space, right? Because it's not telling them what to do. It's saying, you have full freedom to do whatever you want, but they don't know what to do with it. And so then I thought to myself, okay, instead of being like, how do you not know what to do with this? I thought to myself, okay, so I need to put out more resources on how they can use the drawing board. So again, it was like
education,
constructive feedback. Yeah. I could have looked at it differently, but I chose to look at it as, no, this is constructive feedback. I just need to educate.
Got it. So I'm really curious. One thing I really want to learn about is, because you actually went to visit your supplier.
Yes.
Was that last year, 2019?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome, and I'm really curious about what that experience was like. So, yeah, I guess what made you want to make the trip all the way over there to go see a supplier, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I guess a bit of a backstory to understand why we made the trip. In our first year, as I mentioned earlier, we experienced issues like a really high defect rate with our supplier. In year 2, even with those, even having that agreement in place and having those initial discussions, we still experienced a really high defect rate. They didn't want to honour the agreement that was in place. Thankfully, so are you familiar with Alibaba? Yeah. So thankfully, the agreement is uploaded to Alibaba, and they sort of play the role of a middleman whenever there are disputes. And so it was a very lengthy and emotional process to go through to be compensated because there was such a huge defect rate. And we were happy to work through it. We were like, okay, this is a learning curve for both parties. You know, let's work together to resolve this. But they didn't want to resolve it at all.
Wow.
So we were like, all right, well, we can't work with you then.
Yeah.
So then we needed to find another supplier. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges being, you know, we're going into the third season and we don't have a supplier that is, you know, can deliver what we're after without the headaches.
So just to clarify, so the first year was one supplier.
Yep.
The second year was that same supplier or different?
Yep.
And then you had contracts in place that were not easily fulfilled. So then you had to find a third one.
And thankfully, you know, third time's a charm. So very, very grateful that went well.
And what did you do differently? Was it a bit of luck or just more due diligence on your part? Or?
I honestly think it was going to visit them. That was the main motivation to go visit our supplier and sit down with them and say, hey, yes, we're a small business, but we're looking at this for the long term. You know, we want to partner with you long term. We mean business. These are our concerns, and sort of, you know, sitting down face to face versus communicating via email. It says a lot more about you and about your intentions.
Yep.
So that gave us just so much peace of mind, like not only sitting down, but understanding the processes, being given a tour around the factory. So
where was the factory? This was in China, was it?
Yes. Yeah. In Ningbo. Yeah. And it just, it gave us solid peace of mind. Like I walked out of that and I just had this like immense weight just fall off me.
Yeah. Because
a lot of the issues that we had sort of outlined to them, and we said, look, you know, we understand that it's not going to be 100%, but these are the issues that we cannot accept them. Like it's just our customers aren't going to accept them. And the biggest one was pages in the incorrect order.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, James. It was an absolute nightmare. Like it was just, I lost sleep over that period in time where we were just opening boxes and, you know, it's not just a scratch. It's like we needed to go through the pages to make sure they were in the correct order. Once we received an email from a customer saying, hey, I don't have July.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so...
It's not what you want.
No. So
that's worse as well, because there's no way to tell just by quickly looking at it. You'd have to actually dig through it.
Yeah. So we just extended the whole packing process, right? Because you're not just packing diaries, you're conducting a quality check.
Yeah.
So spending the money and the time to go to China it was a lot of money. Like we were like, oh, do we really want to spend this to go see a potential supplier? We don't even know if he's going to be the supplier. And I can say without a doubt, it was worth every cent. Yeah.
It's amazing. Have you got any advice or, I guess, tips if someone is looking to get something manufactured overseas and they want to potentially go visit a supplier? Any lessons learned from that you could pass on?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess firstly I want to acknowledge that as a startup, if you're a startup, you probably don't have the budget to go overseas. I mean, we definitely didn't to, you know, just go visit your supplier. So if that's the case, and even before going to visit them, which is what we did, get samples first, just to verify that at least on the surface, they're ticking some boxes. And so get samples of goods that they've already produced for other brands. And then maybe you might want to get a customized sample of, you know, like we usually get a customized sample of the previous years and assess the quality based on that. And then it was only when we had that, you know, that kind of ticked the boxes for us that we were like, okay, let's go visit this supplier.
So sort of pre-vetting.
Yeah.
Getting a short list.
Yes, definitely. And I guess the question you want to ask yourself is, why do you want to visit the supplier? What are the issues that you kind of want to iron out? You know, it's a meeting, but it's more than a meeting because you're flying over there. So have a solid plan in place, like have questions in place. I know this sounds very type A, but I think it's important to know what the goal is.
Yeah.
And so that you can, work to achieve it while you're over there, rather than coming back home and being like, oh, damn it, I should have asked them this. I should have discussed this issue. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that, because I think it's easy to, I guess, let it become just a kind of excursion.
Yes.
And where you're kind of just checking out what's around, but you actually want tangible outcomes from it. So planning ahead.
Absolutely. I think my other tip would be to recognize, assuming your supplier is in China, recognize that it's a different culture that you're going into.
Yeah.
So they are all about, well, from my experience, whining and dining you first. So you don't really talk business in this part of the experience.
Yep.
You go out, like we went out for lunch with our supplier, and you get to know them.
Yep.
And you just avoid business talk until you get to, the factory, and then you can sort of, bring out your folder and be like, this is my agenda.
Got it. So you don't want to just bust that out over lunch?
No, yeah, definitely not. You want to get to know them and take an interest in their life, I guess, outside of the factory.
I've definitely heard that that's a big thing, when suppliers, especially in that region, they sort of, if they can see you and meet you in person, put a face to a name, they'll offer you a lot better service and deals than someone else over the internet.
Absolutely. Yeah, being able to put a face to the name, and I guess because they're translating our emails most of the time, right? It's just different. Like, you don't get a tone, you don't get that sincerity. Yeah. It's just words. Yeah. So you saying, I want to partner with you long term, everyone says that. Yeah. It carries no weight.
Yeah. But when you actually go there.
Yeah. When you go there, you actually get respect, because they know that you've come all the way from Australia. Yeah. They know you mean business.
Got it. And did you like hire a translator, or how did that work?
We were lucky. So our account manager was pretty good. His English was pretty good. Yeah. So we met with him and the manager of the factory, who couldn't speak a word of English. So our account manager was basically the translator if the manager wanted to say anything to us, and he did. He had he was very proud of his factory.
Yeah, I believe it.
And when we told them, we had pages in the incorrect order, they laughed because they couldn't believe that another factory could produce that. So that in itself was like, oh, okay, cool. So this isn't normal.
Got it.
It was reassuring in that sense. And yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting to get your insights, because I think it's definitely an important thing to do, especially with something as high quality. You want it to be super high quality to actually go and visit the supplier. It's a big thing. So
yes.
It's cool. And so, yeah, we've sort of gone a bit into the weeds and the nuts and bolts of the business, which I love. But I also want to talk a bit about, I guess, just like overall in your life now and your lifestyle. Like, the whole idea behind this business, Saint Belford, is looking after yourself, creating good habits, prioritizing wellbeing, all that. So for you, like personally now, I guess using this tool yourself, and also just everything you've learned over the last few years, maybe you just give us some examples, I guess, of how you're kind of building good habits, prioritizing your well-being. I'd just love to hear a bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my go-to rituals are daily meditation. So as soon as I get out of bed, I meditate for 10 minutes. And that, again, is my reminder to slow down, take it easy, and look after, and just give myself space, I guess, because prior to that, I would always be rushing out of bed to get dressed and to go to the next thing. So just giving myself that space. Yoga is another thing that has become a huge part of my life. I started around the same time that we started Saint Belford, and I do at least about three to four classes a week. What else do I do? Boxing has been a new favorite workout of mine.
Love it. You beat up Thomas?
Not quite there yet. Yeah, I guess you know, like the planner has been modeled. Like I always schedule in like a self-care activity every day, whether that's, you know, obviously I meditate daily and there's things that I do daily, but I like to use it as an exercise tracker almost. Like what exercise am I going to do for myself today? Yep. Whether that's yoga or boxing or, you know, doing just a home workout.
One thing that you do have in the diary, which I thought was cool, was the self-care menu, because I sort of have done something. I've never like written it down, but I kind of have that in my mind for myself personally, where it's like, you know, if I feel like my energy is low or I'm sort of out of balance, well, what are the things I can refer back to sort of bring me back? So is that something, maybe you could just explain what that is exactly? Because I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome that you do that. That's really cool. Yeah, so the self-care menu is just space for you to write down, you know, activities, routines and rituals that really recharge you and, you know, can alleviate stress in the moment, things that refuel you, and you have evidence to show that, you know, that actually has made me feel better. And you can refer back to that list when you feel, you know, stressed, whenever you feel burnt out, and just pick from that personalized list rather than just, you know, I guess wallowing in the deep end of not knowing what to do for yourself. Yeah, I think proactive self-care, like writing that list down and having that there for you is so important, because the fact is, like, when you are so stressed and so burnt out and so anxious, it's hard for you to think. It's just hard to know what to do for yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's almost like systematizing your well-being.
Yeah.
It's sort of like for me, there's certain things that I do where I know if I'm feeling low energy, if I do it, like whether it's like jujitsu, salsa dancing, something like that, that'll bring me right back up. So I just know I can sort of refer to that. So for you, is it like yoga, boxing, all those kind of things?
100%. So for me, it's yoga. There's been days where I've felt really, low energy it's mainly yoga is my practice for getting out of my head. So if I'm feeling quite frazzled, quite stressed or anxious, I'll be like, okay, I need to go to a yoga class and just zen out. If I'm feeling low energy, I need cardio. And my favorite type of cardio is like boxing.
Yeah.
I feel just so energized by it. And this is only new. And that's the other thing to remember. Don't be afraid to try new things. Doesn't mean you need to, don't just, you know, write a list of things in your self-care menu that you haven't tried. Like, make sure it's obviously things that you have tried and have worked for you. But don't be afraid to add to that list and update it regularly, because I used to run back in the day, but I don't like running anymore. So you've got to update it. You know, if that doesn't work for you anymore, remove it. Replace it with something else.
Yeah. Makes sense. And in terms of, because one thing that I believe in is the importance of having good habits and building them. And I think you're the same as well. So have you got any thoughts on how people actually do build good habits and make them stick long term, essentially? Yeah.
So I guess I'll offer up 2 tips, like just 2 simple tips that would be easy to explain here. I guess the number one thing would be to set like a specific habit intention. I think a lot of the time we go around saying, oh, I want to meditate, oh, I want to exercise, but we're not clearly defining what that means. And I think that can be our downfall, because then you're fatiguing yourself by having to kind of figure out, when am I going to exercise? Where am I going to exercise? What does this exercise even look like? And how long am I doing it for? So if you're able to sort of set a specific intention, like, I'm going to run for 20 minutes every morning when I get up, then that's a more specific intention. It's a plan of action that you can actually commit to. It alleviates that decision fatigue. It gives you clarity. So yeah, it's not some vague idea anymore. It's a plan of action. And the other thing would be to start small. Like, I will be the first to admit that, you know, there've been times where I've just set ridiculously ambitious intentions, but they don't serve us in the long term, because when that initial like excitement and motivation fizzles out, you can't sustain it. Like, it's very difficult to sustain. So start small and like build upon that. So if you're saying, like, for me personally, actually, I've just started building the habit of reading every morning. And instead of saying, I'm going to read like 30 pages or I'm going to read for 30 minutes, which for me is like a long time, especially if it's a new habit. Yeah. So I'm just saying to myself, I'm going to read 5 pages on the couch. And if I read more, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But 5 pages is all I need to do to kind of like tick that off. And by starting small, it's not going to feel like work. That's the other thing. You don't want it to feel like work. You want it to feel easy enough so that you can keep coming back to it. Yeah. Because the key is consistency, right? And building that habit. So yeah, don't be afraid to start small and then just build upon that and make sure that it feels easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's just about creating that initial momentum, and then you'll find one thing I've heard someone say before is that they wanted to start going to the gym every morning. So as a habit, all they decided to do was they made a commitment that when they got up in the morning, they'd put on their gym clothes and then stand outside for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then if they wanted to come back in and go back to bed, they could. But when you put on the clothes and you're standing outside, it's pretty hard it's easy to keep that momentum going and then end up going to the gym.
Absolutely, yes. I love that. Yeah.
It's just a small win that then compounds.
For sure, yes.
And for me personally as well, you mentioned books before. It was exactly the same for me, I never used to read books, but then I just committed 10 pages in the morning every day. And then you're surprised at how it adds up over time.
It's so surprising, isn't it? I reckon I've been trying to build the habit of reading for, years. And it's just like I'll go through bouts of like being excited to read a book, and then I'll read, like maybe half a book, but then I won't even finish it because again, there was no like defined time that I was going to do it. And there was no, I wasn't giving myself like a specific task to do, it was just like, go read.
Yeah. And it's almost like we kind of, we say we'll wait until we can really like sit down and commit.
Yes.
And then it just never happens.
Never happens. Got to start small. And like you said, I love that. Got to let those small habits compound over time.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you would have finished, a few books.
Yeah. I think I've read somewhere that you mentioned The Slight Edge. That's a favorite book of yours, is it?
Yes. Well, it was the first like self-development book that I read. So I think the first one always sticks with you.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Yes. So that has definitely been, I guess it was my introduction to habits, an introduction into how the little things compound over time, and just how important those little choices are that seem unimportant at the time. Like it's just like, it's just one little decision. But if you keep making that decision, then it's going to lead you down a path.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as he says in the book, it's easy to do, but also easy not to do.
Yes.
So, yeah, I always recommend that book to people.
Yeah. I haven't read it in a while, actually. It's been a few years. I should pick it up again.
Yeah, I'll send you my notes. I took comprehensive notes on that.
Yeah.
Any other books that had a big impression on you? Or?
That's probably the biggest one. Nothing comes to mind at the moment. And that's not to say, I haven't gotten nuggets of wisdom out of other books. It's just I felt that was the most impactful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. All right, well, we're sort of wrapping up here, coming towards the end, Alex.
Yep.
It's been awesome to go through your journey, but just a few quick questions, because I'm curious what so these are yearly diaries. This is the 2021 that you've been selling at the moment, and we're in March now. So yeah, I'm curious because I guess later in the year to the start of the year would be when you're selling all the diaries for the year ahead.
Yes.
So what's coming up in the next sort of 6 months for you for Saint Belford or any other projects?
Yeah, so we're looking to launch 2 new products in June and kind of shift away from that seasonal business model so that we have products to sell all year round. So really looking forward to that. One is going to be kept as a surprise because I love surprises and our customers do too.
Yep.
But one that we are currently working on is a journal, and some people actually some people refer to curation as a journal, but I'm talking about a journal in a more traditional sense. So a place for self-reflection, self-discovery, and for self-soothing purposes as well. So we're working with some health coaches and a psychologist to put together, meaningful, thought-provoking prompts that will go inside this journal. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this come to life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. And yeah, it's amazing that you're also working with professionals in that area as well. So it's like your own experience coupled with professional experience as well, I
Yeah,
guess.
absolutely. Like I'm a big believer in delegating what isn't, perhaps your strength, and leveraging your network again, and seeking different perspectives from other professionals out there who share the same, vision as you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, is there anything I haven't asked you, Alex, or just anything you want to really make sure you pass on to the audience before we finish up?
I guess for those starting out, just main emphasis is to ask for help when you need it. Don't be a hero. Don't try and do it all. There's no shame in asking for help. Like, we all need it. And the other thing is to make sure that you set boundaries, because as we discussed before, I think it's dangerous when you kind of have all this freedom, right? There's no one telling you what to do. So you can work through the night, you can work on the weekends, but you've got to self-manage. You've got to prioritize your well-being and recognize that burnout is inevitable if you keep going. So you've really got to honor your limits and know what they are. And they're different for everyone, but it's just about listening to your body rather than waiting for those, serious red flags.
Yeah. Catch them early before they become serious, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. It's great advice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex. What's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to check out Saint Belford? What's the best way?
Yeah, so definitely on Instagram. So just at Saint Belford, spelt out SaintBelford. Yep, I don't have a personal page, so that's pretty much my personal and business page all in one.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your journey, Alex. It's fascinating business. You've really done amazing things with it, and you're continuing to moving forward. So thanks again for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me, James.